seen, and we felt it was important to share that with the public. This morning's briefing will be a little bit more to the point. The response here in Kerr County continues to expand as the mission becomes more technical. There's more than 2,100 responders on the ground here from state, local, and federal agencies working to reunite victims with families. 10 states have sent specially trained teams to our community, and 2 more states are en route. As I know many of you have reported, the governor, lieutenant governor, and the Speaker of the House are strongly committed to helping our community. And we're grateful that they're making our recovery a priority in the upcoming special legislative session. Our city of Kerrville and Kerr County leadership are committed to a transparent and full review of processes and protocols. The special session is going to be a starting point for that work, but our entire focus since day one has been on rescue and reunification, which leads me to our latest report. As of 8 a.m. this morning, there have been 96 confirmed deaths, 60 adults, and 36 children. The number of missing remains at 161, and there remain 5 campers and 1 counselor from Camp Mystic among the missing. If family members had reported a loved one missing and they've returned safely, we ask that you notify us through kerrvillemissing@dps.texas.gov or call 830-258-1111. Again, that's kerrvillemissing@dps.texas.gov or call 830-258-1111. Additionally, the state of Texas, FEMA, the Small Business Administration have opened a disaster recovery center here in Kerrville for those who have been affected by the storms. It's currently open at the First Baptist Church here in Kerrville at 625 Washington Street. It'll be open from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day. The Individual Assistance Program can provide financial support for things like medical and dental assistance, vehicle damage, housing, child care, and replacing essential items, even for non-residents who were impacted by the floods. You can visit disasterassistance.gov, use the FEMA app, or call 1-800-621-3362. And again, that's disasterassistance.gov. Use the FEMA app or call 1-800-621-3362. And in closing, I'd like to say one more time, on behalf of our unified command here in Kerr County, how appreciative we are for the help since this tragedy took place. People from all over Texas, all over the country, continue to show their support in so many ways, and we are thankful. And with that, I'll take a few questions.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Morgan Chesky, NBC News. Did the inability of police radios to communicate directly with county radios hamper rescue or recovery efforts as those waters rose?
I don't have any information to that point. Yes, sir.
Jason Allen, CBS News. Given that you still have people who live in this area, what's different? What changes have been made to ensure you get heavy rain again a week from now, a month from now, you don't wind up in the same situation?
I think that's an important question, and as we are aware, we've been very weather alert throughout the entirety of this, and that's something that we're going to be looking at. Thank you.
Sergeant Lang, can I get a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Amp Johns, News 4 San Antonio. What can you tell us about the current search area, how large it is, how much of it has been searched, and how exactly does the grid system work for something like this?
Say the last part of your question again, please.
How does the grid system work for a disaster like this?
Okay, so the grid system, I'm not a search and rescue recovery expert, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but it is a methodical search which ensures that every area in an area to be searched is covered and searched and that no stone is left unturned. Unfortunately, I don't have a exact number of how many miles of river that we've searched, or how many people who have been out there. I just don't have that information for you, but I'm happy to follow up.
Sir, last question. This will be last question.
Yes. Are there messages that we as a collective media are not getting out there? For example, are you hindering some searches? What can we tell people who want to come up with big equipment to help search or remove debris? Hasn't that been a problem?
I don't want to say it's been a problem because we're so grateful for the amount of people who want to come to this community to help. And we've had people from all over the state and all over the country volunteer their services and say, I have a front end loader, I have a boat, I have this. Groups and individuals, but it's important that we have certified professional search teams out there right now. We have compiled a database of volunteers who have made themselves available, and if and when that time comes that we are able to call upon them, we will be calling upon them. In the short term, I believe that all of our basic needs are being met, both through the federal and state response and the support that we've been getting, as well as this community rising up in a really unprecedented way to show their support for all of us here. Thank you very much.
That's the end of the press conference. If you are not receiving his emails from the Joint Information Center.
You have been listening to officials in Kerr County, Texas, giving us the latest after those devastating 4th of July flash floods in the area. And we have some new numbers, but really what I think the top line here is they mostly remain unchanged since yesterday, really highlighting just how difficult this recovery effort is. One more death than we had heard about yesterday, 96 killed total. That's just in Kerr County alone. The breakout of that is 60 adults and 36 children, with still 161 missing. That includes those 5 campers and 1 counselor from that camp we've been talking a lot about, Camp Mystic, that was right along that Guadalupe River. We will point out, though, there were 6 counties here impacted with 120 deaths across those all 6 counties and 173 in total still missing. Let's bring in NBC's Priscilla Thompson. She is in Kerrville. That is where we just got this update from authorities. Priscilla, I think, again, the most staggering thing here is just those numbers reflect how difficult this recovery process really is, finding those who are missing.
Yeah, Savannah, that is the thing that stuck out to me as well. I believe the governor briefed on Tuesday night and had similar numbers in the amount of missing, around that 161, 170 across all of these counties here in the Hill Country. And it appears from what we heard today that the numbers here in Kerr County are still at 161 missing. And that is after an additional 24 hours of searching. That means in the last 24 hours, it does not appear that they have found any more remains or identified any other of these missing folks. And obviously, as the days continue to pass and the search continues growing more desperate, it's unclear if they are going to be able to find all of these people. And when you look at the devastation, you begin to understand there's all of this very heavy debris that they are working meticulously to go through with heavy machinery, searching for any signs of a person that they might be able to identify to bring these families some closure. And I also noticed that they opened this press conference, which I should note was probably the shortest one that we've seen so far, under 10 minutes, talking about that question of accountability, which is one of the questions that is growing more louder as this search continues, whether more could have or should have been done to prevent this massive loss of life, the massive amount of people who are missing. And you heard officials there saying the governor announced yesterday that this is going to be talked about in the special session. He has suggested that there will be hearings about the response and that is when they are going to begin to address those questions. But nonetheless, there were reporters in the room, including our own Morgan Chesky, pressing officials there about some of those questions. You heard Morgan ask them about the radio systems and whether the county and the city were communicating. And again, officials saying they had no information on that question for him. We also heard the question of, look, this area could get more rain and potentially more flooding in the coming weeks. What is going to be different if this happens again soon? And what we heard them say there is just that they're going to be, quote, very weather alert. It is unclear what exactly that means. So still a lot of questions on the accountability front, even as we are learning that the number of missing does not appear to be going down right now. And the death toll, as you noted, increased by 1. Savannah?
Yeah, Priscilla, a great question there, of course, from our colleague, but even that special session that you point out, by my count, I think is still something like 11 days away where they're supposed to broach this topic. And as you mentioned, weather between now and then could continue to be a concern. I also want to ask you a little bit more, and you touched on this, but just about the response that we're seeing on the ground, because I'm sure people at home are just thinking, oh my goodness, essentially no one has been found in 24 hours. But we did hear there are 21 responders on the ground. Those are from state, local, federal agencies. We know of teams coming from other states, bringing just tons of equipment along with them. There are volunteer organizations bringing cadaver dogs, bringing horses that can traverse the river, and yet still so many missing. Tell us about what you've seen on the ground in terms of these people who are carrying out the recovery effort.
Yeah, Savannah, just a few minutes ago, as this presser was ongoing, there were a group of men who walked by with chainsaws here where we are. So folks are continuing to try to cut up some of these big debris. And we know that, as you noted, there are federal, there are state resources, there are all of these resources on the ground. You have a number of states across the country, even some teams from Mexico that have come over to try to assist with this search effort. We've seen the helicopters overhead, the scuba divers in the water, divers in the water, also searching, people wading into the water with flashlights trying to search. But that also gives you a sense of just how difficult this is. You're dealing with these muddy riverbanks. You've got a lot of big debris, as officials were saying. You've got pieces of homes. You've got vehicles sometimes that have all been pulled into this water. I believe the latest we heard from officials was that they had searched around 1,100 miles of this river and this area. And as you noted, still, like, we're not seeing the numbers of missing going down. And so that gives you a sense of just how difficult this task is going to be, as I imagine some minds and questions are turning to whether all of these people are ever going to be found and identified, and what closure is going to look like for these families after this just incredibly devastating tragedy for so many.
One of the other things we specifically heard about was the fact that there are these still 5 campers and 1 counselor missing from Camp Mystic, which has just turned out to the stories we're hearing right about this place and how special it is to people who are campers there. I had an older woman on my show this morning who is now sheltering in place with people that she went to Camp Mystic with generations ago. Give us the latest on this camp. I know it's in so many people's thoughts on their hearts right now, just thinking about Camp Mystic and the families that have been impacted there. What do we know at this point?
Yeah, we had teams in that area yesterday, and they described seeing that a lot of the trunks and the things in the cabins were just pulled out as they were continuing to sort of go through some of the aftermath there. And it was just a devastating sight, because you think about all those kids, all of those counselors who were there having a good time at camp when these floodwaters rushed in. And as they said in that presser, some 36 children who died in all of this, still 5 campers who are missing, 1 counselor, and that number has remained there since about Monday, I believe, was when Camp Mystic had put out that information, and that number has not changed. And so it is certainly devastating, but we're also seeing the community coming together overnight. There were 2 vigils that were held, and it was just the community just remembering and grieving together as one. There are a lot of resources on the ground here to help those who are rebuilding, many of them survivors who are just grateful that they are still alive, especially as they are seeing what some of these parents and just people who have had loved ones who have died, what they are going through. But we have seen in all of this that Camp Mystic community is strong. It goes back decades, and I have no doubt we'll continue to see them supporting each other as they work to make sense of this all and to ensure that this doesn't happen again.
Priscilla, yesterday in the briefing, we heard from the mayor there of Kerrville, Mayor Joe Herring. He mentioned one specific resource. He said he thought the best place for those of us at home, which I know so many of our viewers are wondering how they can help, was a website, communityfoundation.net. He said so many things that were going, those donations were going straight to those who needed it. What are you seeing on the ground as the greatest needs from people, for people at home who want to help?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the survivors here, there are some of them who have lost everything, who their homes literally just got pulled into this river. And so it is thinking about housing, short-term housing, long-term housing. Where are they going to stay? Things like food and clothes. And I will tell you, we've also seen a lot of volunteers here, the tents that are set up offering meals, the people who are coming by saying, do you need water? What do you need? Volunteers also just helping folks to kind of clear some of that debris and to make sense of what is left and where they begin to pick up the pieces. There's also a FEMA site that is now opened to help provide resources, even though we know that the state is going to be taking the lead on this recovery. For folks who aren't covered by insurance or may not have insurance, they can go to that FEMA site and get additional information. But certainly donating to places like that community, the Hill Country community group that you mentioned that are accepting donations. And in fact, officials yesterday said they were getting so many donations that they were going to have to reconfigure that site a bit so that it could manage all of those donations. You also have United Way and a number of organizations that I know we have on our website where for folks who want to support. And certainly people here do appreciate that support, Savannah. We have heard that from so many people we've spoken to here.
Priscilla Thompson, thank you so much for your reporting on the ground from Kerrville. It's been fantastic, and we will continue to follow this story throughout the day. Again, those updated totals, 96 dead in Kerr County alone. Stay with us for more on Morning News Now.
Politician who's been barred for running for office in Brazil this decade and is facing charges for an alleged coup to overturn his 2022 election loss, which he denies. The president calling Bolsonaro's trial